Saki Sanobashi, also known as Go for a Punch, is a Japanese urban legend. Since its inception, the legend has gone on to garner a lot of attention among internet and anime communities, some even considering it to be the most disturbing piece of lost animation. In 2015, a post on 4chan asked the question, "What's the most messed up thing you have seen on the deep web?" An anonymous user replied with the following: "Some weird anime about naked girls stuck in a large bathroom without doors, having a philosophical debate about never getting out of the room. After losing hope and starving for some days, everything goes downhill. They just start screaming and yelling. Then they all commit suicide, either by smashing their heads on the floor or scratching their necks to bloody pieces. One girl helped the other drown in a sink because she asked her to hold her because she couldn't do it. I cried myself to sleep right after watching that video because I didn't even know anymore. Why would anyone draw that with such precision? It was horrifying." The anonymous user then follows up by describing that it looked to be an 80s animation, Japanese dub with English subtitles, and the episode was about 30 minutes. They then go on to say that they have not found or seen the episode since. This post from the anonymous user caused a sort of chain reaction across the forum site, as well as other platforms. From this post alone, many people could recall exactly what the user was talking about. They too could recall details about the missing anime. Another post on 4chan reads, "Little, rather far apart eyes, almost like Miyazaki. Most had bushy brown hair and only one, the one that was drowned, had a really brightly colored Heim cut. I watched it in 2011 for sure, especially because of one particular scream one girl had. It had a strange echo to it, and it almost made me dizzy. The closest reproduction of that sound I can find is from the Shining soundtrack. I swear if I hear the real thing again, I'll go berserk." The sound referenced can be heard in this link from the poster. This poster says, "I hope you have better luck than me, but at the same time, I hope you don't, because if you're anything like me, it will be pretty depressing. It just has this abstract feeling to it that doesn't go away for a long time. It definitely wins the time record for character development. I felt really bad for all of them. There were 9 girls in the room. 8 of them looked really similar, but all their voices varied. There was not even instrumental music, just occasional ambiance throughout the video. What was the most unsettling about the suicide scenes were the weird camera angles and no horror music as I'd expect. Just girls softly sobbing and gagging as they ripped their necks open with their fingers. They looked like the embodiment of lost hope. And the head-smashing parts, I don't even want to go into details." This Twitter post from 2018 reads, "Can one of you guys help me? I've been looking for a specific manga, but I don't remember the name of it. It was about 3 high school students who get trapped in a room and talk about their lives and stuff. I remember that they all end up eventually unaliving themselves." The legend of Saki Sanobashi even found its way onto the Lost Episode Creepypasta wiki. This author writes the following:
I'm writing this journal entry to document my experience with a certain film. I'm probably already dead if anyone is reading this, but please read on. I hate Saki Sanobashi and what it has done to my life. Most importantly, I hate the depraved bastards who have made it. Until recently, I've been an average college girl with only one notable quality. I love searching for lost media. Most people get a thrill from watching a good horror movie, and I'm no different with lost media. There's just something about the elusive nature of it that makes the hunt so fascinating. There's a countless amount of entertainment that vanishes from the public eye for whatever reason, and many remain completely forgotten. That never sat well with me. Maybe it's the history buff in me, but I believe every form of content should be preserved. It's scary to think that something that brings you joy could one day be forever lost to time. Saki Sanobashi is a name that's been plaguing me for the last few years now. Every lost media enthusiast worth their salt has at least heard of it if they haven't already joined the hunt. I'm one of the several archivists who plunged headfirst into this monstrosity of a goose chase. I, like many others, got hooked on its tragic premise of a bunch of schoolgirls trapped in a bathroom where death is the only way out. The morbid curiosity in all of us compelled us to search high and low for this elusive anime. That was years ago. Now, Saki remains a distant memory in the minds of once optimistic researchers. Dead end after dead end had led to the entire thing labeled as some elaborate hoax. Even I began losing faith in the search despite all the time I invested in it. It was disheartening knowing that one of the most fascinating lost media searches of all time could be fake. I would have quit entirely had it not been for that one fateful afternoon. It was a typically brutal winter in Toronto, which meant that a snowstorm would be picking up before the day was over. I thought it best to go to my favorite comic and stock up on my favorite books before the storm trapped me at home with my girlfriend. Marquee Noir was different from the other comic shops in that there exists a secret section of the store only a select few know about. Because I've been a loyal customer for a few years, the owner trusted in showing me the back room. I was hesitant at first to enter a secluded room alone with a man due to being a woman, but I figured he wouldn't try anything with customers still in the store. What I saw in that room was the stuff of wonder. Several shelves were stocked with underground comics so obscure even the most hardcore archivists probably didn't know about them. The type of comics you can't even find on the internet. It was heaven on earth for a lost media obsessed girl like me. The original post mentioned Saki being an anime, but I was desperate for any type of media out there. What's fascinating is that there were also movies stocked with the comics. The cover art on each DVD case was incredibly low quality, to the point that I assumed the store owner handmade them himself. There were no ISBNs or distributor info anywhere to be found, so my theory seemed fairly likely all things considered. I filled my bag with as many items as I could afford, which isn't a lot for a broke college student, and excitedly swiped my card at the counter. The store owner gave me the weirdest of grins as I made my purchase. He seemed amused, but almost in a mocking sort of way. He hardly ever emotes in the first place, so that smile really caught me off guard. I left the store and boarded the closest train to drop me off at the dorms. Though Halloween comes in the autumn, I feel like winter is the most ideal season to indulge in horror. The cold weather is like a reflection of the spine-chilling fear I get whenever I read a good comic. I stepped inside my dorm room and immediately began browsing through my latest collection. They all looked so good I didn't know where to begin. As I rummaged through the pile of DVDs, I noticed something that threw me for a loop. One DVD case was completely blank. The cover was pitch black and so was the back. There wasn't even anything on the spine. I couldn't imagine myself buying something like this, so how it ended up with me was a mystery. Still, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't the least bit intrigued by it. There could have been literally anything on that disc, and the only way to find out was to start the movie. I waited for my girlfriend to return from campus before starting the movie. Emily's a cute brunette, but she has zero tolerance for horror. She always shrieks her head off whenever I play my movies in the living room. All that blood and gore drives her crazy. She greeted me with a kiss on the lips and then paused when she saw the devious smirk on my face. She already knew what I had in store for her. Emily, of course, protested, but I pleaded with her to watch the movie with me. Seeing her scream like a child over on-screen murder was sometimes more enjoyable than the movie itself. She remained firm in her stance against it, but eventually broke down after enough of my begging. It feels good having things my way. I quickly inserted the DVD into an old game station and stared at the screen with anticipation for what was about to start. After several seconds of a blank screen, some Japanese text appeared with an English subtitle that read, Requiem of the Lost Girls. The title naturally left me curious, so I watched on with excitement. The scene then faded back to black, and what I saw after that made my blood freeze solid. 3 schoolgirls in a bathroom. All of them had miserable looks of utter despair. The scene was unmistakable. It was a scenario I ran over in my head countless times. It was Saki Sanobashi, the anime I searched years for. Having the legendary film before me after all this time was almost too good to be true. And to think it came from my favorite comic shop. I've been shopping for years now and never even had a hint something like Saki would be there. Emily was confused as to why I was so excited, so I told her we just discovered the holy grail of lost media. The gravity of the situation was unsurprisingly lost on her, but she smiled anyway for my sake. We watched the movie unfold just like the legend went. The girls remained trapped in the bathroom and lamented their misfortune all the while. As the film progressed, the agony in their expressions became increasingly visceral. Their eyes looked so hollow. Their skin was so pale. Emily clutched into my hand with a hint of anxiety in her eyes. The tone of the video was much more somber than I expected. Seeing the girls take turns telling the others about their hopes and dreams, trying desperately to alleviate their situation, felt oddly melancholic. I was growing attached to these characters to the point I hoped they'd find a way despite that going against the lore. We eventually reached the part where the girls realized there truly was no way out of their situation, except for death. Their deaths were just as horrid as I expected them to be. One girl goaded one of the others into drowning her in the sink, and another clawed at her own neck with visceral detail. The most painful part of it all was the blood-curdling scream the last girl emitted as she bashed her head against the wall. It was far more realistic than it had any right to be. Despite all the fear, my heart raced with excitement. I had to write a blog post to let everyone know about my discovery. The internet would go wild once I told them the good news. I quickly went to my Tumblr to start writing, but the site wouldn't load. I tried other social media sites, but nothing was working. I tried stepping outside in the hall to get better reception, but the door wouldn't budge. The knob didn't move at all, no matter how hard I pulled. My girlfriend and I were both freaking out at this point. We tried opening windows, calling 911, and banging on doors, all of which were in vain. We were somehow completely severed from the outside world. I wondered how the hell was any of this possible when the image of the movie flashed into my mind. We were trapped just like the girls in Saki Sanobashi. So far, we've spent 2 weeks in the hellhole of an apartment. Food has long since run out, and any sense of hope is dead. It pains me to see Emily's body as pale as winter, her eyes devoid of life. Neither of us can last much longer. I'm writing this document as a warning to anyone searching for Saki Sanobashi. Stay the hell away from it. It is a cursed film that dooms its viewers to suffer the same fate as the girls in the bathroom. I imagine the curse will be lifted once we die and our belongings will be collected by our loved ones. Hopefully, they will see this document and spread the news. Or maybe they'll brush this off as the crazed rantings of a lunatic. I honestly don't know anymore. All I can say is to stay safe and never attempt to watch this damned movie.
Needless to say, the legend of Saki embedded itself into lost media culture. As time went on, there were many attempts to locate the lost episode. These attempts would do little in the way of proving the anime's concrete existence. Many researchers became disheartened. One individual broke down the likelihood that the anime truly exists. The pros were that many people remember it. It has a generic plot based on Western stories and an 80s aesthetic which were cheaper to make. It could be a homebrew anime by some college art students. The cons were that it sounds like a creepypasta story, and that subtitles in English with voices in Japanese sounds too professional for such an obscure anime. And not to mention, the only sources of the anime's existence come from 4chan. For a while, researchers thought they had a breakthrough when drawing comparisons to the manga known as Brain Damage. The original story, to my knowledge, does not have an English translation, so finding specific information on it was difficult. But from what I gather, Saki enthusiasts took panels like this from Brain Damage and drew comparisons to the lost anime. These featured characters locked in nondescript rooms, frantically trying to get out. In this one disturbing illustration, one of the characters stumbles upon the mutilated corpses of her adversaries. While perhaps a promising lead, the trail went cold once again when it was revealed that the panels belonged to Brain Damage and had no direct connection to Saki Sanobashi or Go for a Punch. Things would take a turn when posters located the origin of the famous image associated with Saki. This Redditor, Conquers Good Fur Day, writes, "The image of the blonde anime girl in a robe associated with Saki Sanobashi is not from anything remotely related to the infamous creepypasta Lost Media, and is instead from an obscure 1996 OVA titled School Ghost Stories. For the record, I am on the side of Saki Sanobashi not existing, and believe that this is yet another piece of evidence. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that I would put a plot like was seen in Saki Sanobashi past the 80s and 90s anime, but there's just no convincing evidence that it exists in my opinion. People have collectively misremembered things on a similar scale before, and I would think even more would have shown up by now if it was regularly viewed across the internet." The animation referenced here, School Ghost Stories, does feature a blonde character often associated with Saki. Despite this discovery, as well as others calling back to obscure anime used in Saki-related content, users were still convinced that Saki Sanobashi had to exist somewhere. The issue is, as researchers found, searching for a lost anime on the clear web when its origin is on the dark web makes things much more complicated. Around this time, many began to point out that Saki would most likely belong to a subgenre known as eroguro anime. This is a type of anime that falls under the Japanese art movement of eroguro, which focuses on eroticism and the grotesque. This type of anime, while accessible on the clear web, has become somewhat of a legend itself. A user on the Lost Media Wiki writes about their experience stumbling upon lost anime on the dark web. The premise, from what I understand, was that a disinherited teenage girl was kidnapped, and then we follow her as she's brutally sexually assaulted and even kills herself. No, I've never seen it. I sadly walked in on someone recounting a fairly detailed account of it. From what I understand, it had the same plot as the original Saw, but with explicit sex scenes, and most of it was focused on a Japanese schoolgirl. If that is the case, that Saki is just another piece of content from the eroguro genre, it would make sense that so many people believe they have seen it. Because the genre marries so many themes seen in Saki, the idea that people could be confusing Saki with other eroguro anime and manga seems plausible. It's hard to pinpoint just what is so special about Saki Sanobashi. Even as someone who didn't get into anime until adulthood, reading the descriptions posted by the original 4chan user conjures up many familiar things. I think about Sailor Moon's outfit, or the one shot in Perfect Blue where Mima is wiping the blood on her face. Perhaps all of the hysteria surrounding Saki Sanobashi comes from mistaken places, images, episodes, and manga that was similar. Despite countless efforts over the years, no verifiable evidence or footage from the anime has ever surfaced. Many people believe that Saki is nothing more than an elaborate hoax or a fabricated urban legend created to generate intrigue and speculation. Then, in 2019, this post was made to the Saki Sanobashi Reddit page. It looks like my previous post was deleted, either by a bot or a moderator. Please don't delete this post. You don't have to believe me, but just hear me out, okay? This is a throwaway account, because I know that people are going to hate me for having led them on for so long, and to be honest, I deserve all the hate you can send my way, but I don't want it following me around on my main account. I made the original post about Go for a Punch, or as it's now called, Saki Sanobashi, as a joke. It all started when I was browsing 4chan and found a thread that was asking about the scariest things that you've ever found on the deep web. And in classic 4chan user fashion, I decided to troll a little, just for fun. I made up some cliche, spoopy, lost episode-esque story in like 5 minutes and gave it an awkward-sounding English title, since a lot of anime, especially low-budget quality ones, have names like that. I didn't feel bad about tricking all of you at first. In fact, I got a pretty good laugh out of it, seeing how people had dedicated so much time and effort to finding a clearly phony story. But as time went on and I started seeing more and more YouTube videos being made about the topic and saw people who were incredibly dedicated, I started to feel kind of bad. But I didn't want to put an end to the search just yet, as it was still pretty funny, especially the discords. They're wild. All of this brings me to today, when I've decided to put an end to this stupid joke that has gone on for far, far too long. I obviously don't have any evidence that I'm the actual OP, and I don't think that there's even any way to prove it. I can already see everyone vehemently denying that I am the OP and continuing the search as if nothing happened, but just to clear my conscience. Saki is fake. I made the whole thing up as a stupid troll. I didn't think that anyone would actually believe me, and I couldn't even imagine that it was possible for it to blow up to this level. I know that I'm repeating myself, but I'm honestly really flattered that so many people have gathered to search for something that I made up in a few minutes. I remember seeing a post just a few days ago where someone made a Discord to recreate Saki. I don't think anything will come of it, as I'm sure that people will lose interest in the project, but I would be honored if people actually made this into a real thing. I have nothing left to say other than offering all of you a sincere apology for having tricked you for so long. Despite this confession, many people continue the search for Saki Sanobashi, some even going as far as to say that this confession itself was written by a troll or someone trying to pose as the OP to finally put the search to rest. The Reddit for Saki is still very active with 7.4 thousand members, but still, the mystery of the disturbing deep web anime continues.
And for their 7.4 thousand members, that's precisely the point, no matter what the original poster says. Let's lean back a moment and look at the big picture. We have a 2014 4chan post, one of the best places online to offer a mystery due to anonymity and unknowable credibility. You can read a post ranging anywhere from total legitimacy to utter fantasy. The nature of the pitch, that it's deep web content, hard to find, hard to trace, largely inaccessible and unaccessed by most people, gives it more leeway for suspension of disbelief and potential to exist. Then add in the scenario around the anime. Probably made in the 80s, making it more obscure, and an impossible horror story, trapped within a paranormal bathroom until desperation and despair drives its characters to gut-wrenching violence. With the precedent of all the truly haunting horror that comes out of Japan involving schoolgirls in some fashion, the idea of something like Go for a Punch is very plausible. The mystery from all angles is strong enough to invite playing along, and because it lands in that vague space between an easy story to tell and a true experience that's hard to express, it invites a drive to discovery along with it. We've got a history of internet fiction like this too. The most famous case is a monster most are familiar with, Slender Man, born of something awful's Create Paranormal Images forum thread, which generated a horror phenomenon with questions of legitimacy for years despite coming from an extremely clear and visible prompt for fiction. Far closer to the case of Saki Sanobashi is Ben Drowned, one of the grandfathers of the unfiction subgenre, This Game I Found. Ben Drowned started on 4chan's X board September 7, 2010, when user Jaduzible relayed the story of picking up a haunted copy of The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. You can even have a mixed approach between Slenderman's and Ben Drowned. Present something contextually clear as fictional under a prompt thread on 4chan, which is what happened with the Backrooms. The original photo was the header of a thread on the X board for unsettling images, and it was a reply to it that established the idea, stating, "If you're not careful and you don't clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms. where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you. Saki Sanobashi is in great company here, with a very familiar origin story. The difference is that compared to its peers, the rollout was far more vague and invites more suspension of disbelief than in other cases. The effect on readers is the same, although the drive is different. Rather than everyone wanting to expand the storytelling and making media for it, there is an element who wants to find the source material, which, naturally, can't be done for cases such as these. But that's not the point. The mystery, its horror, its unknowable factors are the point. And in regards to Go for a Punch being a joke, anyone who's made media for this or played investigator, rather than actually believing themselves an investigator, is in on it. That's the thrill of unfiction, particularly the immersion and reality play stories. Everybody's in on it. One big horror mystery roleplay. At this rate, it wouldn't be surprising to see someone attempt an authentic version of Saki Sanobashi in whatever capacity they can manage. They'd have a hell of a time nailing the authenticity when it comes to look and style, but it's not beyond our ability in the current age to pull it off as creators. Oh, but what am I saying? Several people already gave it that kind of attention. You can find an entire playlist worth over 300,000 views on YouTube of attempts to portray Saki Sanobashi in all its gory glory. Visual contribution isn't all there is either. Would you like to listen to a 42-minute, 52-second original soundtrack? There's something for you all to spin this autumn into winter as the horror season gains ground. Really, Go for a Punch is most likely fiction. A momentary urge of storytelling, an imagination exercise in what could have been found on the deep web that would make a chilling experience. Or as the Reddit poster claiming to be the originator said, a little trolling with some cliches and a touch of absurdity. Saki Sanobashi still took its course online with the kind of traction these mysteries invite, becoming much bigger and more thrilling than its origins. The creative urge is truly powerful, especially combined with a sense of discovery. Who hasn't wanted to find something remarkable or catch wind of the hidden and unbelievable? A little bit of blood in the mix just quickens the pulse. And with a playlist like this, we come rather full circle, don't we? The horror and gruesome indulgence of the concept now made available for anyone to witness, and perhaps for some unsuspecting people on YouTube to come across, driving them to ask what it was they just saw and why it exists, so they look it up and round we go. It's hard to turn the creative urge away. Just check out the original illustrations composed for this video by Emma Wilson. Just like that, the Saki Sanobashi media collection has grown, right in front of your eyes. And what was once lost and imaginary is now immediately more visible and real.
Thank you guys so much for watching. A special shout out to Nightmind for helping me out with this video. If you enjoy online horror stories, unfiction, and ARGs, be sure to check out his links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to Something Sinister for more content like this.